Are you ready to bust some mortgage myths? Today we're going to be going over 3 common mortgage myths and kind of explaining a little bit more about them than people typically do. My name is Dalton Lafreniere and I'm a mortgage lender here in Southern Arizona, and I'm here to educate you on how to buy your first home and how to win when you're going through the process. All right, let's dive right into it. The first myth, and this is a very, very common one, but a lot of people talk about it. You need 20% down to buy a home. On all levels, that is not the truth. And I'm gonna give you a breakdown of each type of loan and what the minimum required down payment is. So starting with FHA, this is the most common type of home loan that's government backed that people utilize. And its minimum down payment requirement is 3.5%. Depending on your structure, you may need 10%, but as long as you're above a 580 credit score, you only need 3.5% down. I'm gonna lump USDA and VA together, 0% down. This depends on a few factors, especially with VA, but the general rule of thumb, if you have full entitlement with VA and you're buying with either your spouse or another veteran, 0. All right, now conventional. Here's where it gets a little bit more complicated. If you're buying your primary residence, the home that you're gonna live in the majority of the year, you're a first-time home buyer, you could go as low as 3% down. If it's not your first time buying and you've owned a home in the last 3 years, 5%. If you're buying a second home, 10% minimum down. And if you're buying an investment property, 15% minimum down. Notice how I didn't say 20. Here's the only program with conventional that you would have to put down more than 20%, and that's a multifamily investment property, 25% down. That's the only case where you have to put a minimum of at least 20% down. Now, to avoid mortgage insurance, yes, you may have to put 20% down or another structure, which I'm not going to explain today. If you want to know how to avoid mortgage insurance without 20% down, you're going to want to give me a call. Lastly is non-QM. If you're one of those business owners, you can do a minimum of 10 to 15% down, depending on the type of home you're buying, the occupancy, and the actual program itself. Myth number 2, you need perfect credit to buy a house. Again, another common one. People think that you have to have a 700 and something score, which is not the truth. Here's a couple of actual details from me as a lender that will explain to you what credit score requirements you have. You probably didn't know this, but if you're buying a house with FHA or VA financing, you might not even need a credit score. You could buy with no credit score. Now, is it a little bit tougher and you have a few more hoops to jump through? Yes, but it's not impossible. Now, here's what the credit score requirements are if you have a credit score. FHA will go down to 500. The caveat is if you're below 580 and above 500, you have to put down 10%. If you're VA, there is no minimum credit score requirement per government guidelines. Conventional will lend down to 620. That is their minimum credit score. However, it usually doesn't make sense to go conventional if you're a 620 credit score unless you're putting down a very large sum of money. And if you don't have capital and you need down payment assistance, my programs go down to 600. So a little bit above what FHA requires for 3.5% down, but you don't need perfect credit even to get down payment assistance or conventional financing. All right, last one, and this one's not talked about quite as much. Getting pre-approved hurts my credit. This one depends on the lender. Many lenders want to do a hard pull on your credit to get you pre-qualified or pre-approved, but that doesn't necessarily need to happen. And I'm going to put an asterisk above this whole myth, because if you're looking to get pre-approved and not have to do anything when you go under contract, yes, you will have to do a hard pull because it is needed throughout the loan process. But here's what I'll say. My team does a tri-merge soft pull on your credit when we are pre-approving you. I'm going to say it again, a tri-merge soft pull. What that means is we get all of your credit information without the ding to your credit. So we get to see the entire picture of your credit know your credit scores, all your debts, but you're not dropping your score that couple points that a hard pull normally does. Doing a hard pull doesn't hurt your credit a ton. Will it ding you a few points up front? Yes, but it usually rebounds fairly fast. And another thing to be aware of is if you're going to shop around for a mortgage loan, don't be too afraid about getting a few quotes, because typically what happens is if you get a couple of hard pulls within 2 weeks, 14 days, it gets lumped into one. So it's not going to be 5 points here, 5 points here, 5 points here, 5 points here. It'll get lumped into one credit pull. So what I will say is definitely at least get a soft pull when you're being pre-qualified. If a lender has no idea what your credit score is and going off of what you say, you could put yourself in a real dilemma when you go under contract, because when you pull your Credit Karma, it's not accurate. So make sure that your lender is at least doing a soft pull so they know your credit scores and what your debts are, because it could vary wildly from what you think you have. So that was 3 common myths for home loans. I hope you learned something. I hope that you were able to take something away and potentially bring yourself further into being ready for that homeownership dream. If any of these things apply to you and you think you might be ready, hit me with a comment down below and say ready, and I will reach out to you and I will either get you a free consultation with myself if I'm licensed in your state, or I'll get you with somebody that is really, really well versed in all this stuff that I'm talking about. I have plenty of friends in the industry who will make sure that you are in great hands. So, hope you guys have a wonderful day. Thanks so much. If you stayed till the end, hit me with a subscribe, hit me with a comment, or just thumbs up the video. It only takes a second and it will really help me put more content out there and help more people achieve their home ownership dreams. Home ownership.